Fearless and truthful.
Provocative and controversial.
We say it like it really is.
With dignity and respect.
Committed to free speech and common sense.
Upbeat and entertaining.
Straight talking and direct.
We may agitate each other and you.
Thought-provoking, heartfelt and passionate.
Hello, chaps, and welcome to a very special edition of Ye Olden Pledge. We're joining you from 1880, the happiest time in British history, according to some newfangled research. And what a jolly old time it is too. Education has become compulsory for children. Queen Vicky is still on the throne, and you'll never guess what. Married women can now own a home of their own. I say, progression at its finest, although I won't be getting rid of the maid, cook and butler anytime soon. Isn't that right, Rachel?
Hang on, I am not happy with this. Well, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, and it was fun for the pledge while it lasted. Now, back to cars, smartphones, Wi-Fi and Avo on toast for me. Much better.
Do you mind? I was in the middle of something there. Coming up on your 21st century pledge, Michelle says Priti Patel can't solve the North-South divide. June thinks it's time to improve state education. Rachel's got a mystery to solve. Nick wants voters to provide compulsory photo ID. But first, it's me. Even a 6-0 Euro qualifier win by England on Monday wasn't enough to supersede news of the game being stopped twice due to the Bulgarian fans' racist behaviour, including Nazi salutes and monkey chanting. Racism is re-emerging in football because racism is re-emerging in society overall. On that same day, I was labelled a terrorist and an Uncle Tom in a corner shop amidst an onslaught of racist abuse online from Scottish nationalists. Yes, you heard me correctly. For arguing that it's folly for Westminster to grant another Scottish referendum. A day later, Spiked Online sought to defend our Home Secretary by arguing that the only reason the left dislike her is because she's a right-wing immigrant. Miss Patel was born in London, England. I'm tired of arguing why we are not immigrants seeking your hospitality, and certainly not your inferiors, but your equals. I thought my generation had already fought this battle, but something rotten is engulfing us again. And as UEFA's president urged us to wage war on the racists, I can't help but feel that we've all been here before.
Madge, I'm really sorry to hear that you were racially abused after that game. I mean, it was an abhorrent spectacle. I think we can all agree that what we saw at that match was despicable, and UEFA has to do everything it can to stamp out racism in football. But as you correctly say as well, football reflects society, and what we see is a sort of bubbling up of some nasty undercurrents of nationalism and sort of far-right sectarian activity, which they're using football as a platform for this manifestation.
Yeah, I think Gareth Southgate, the England manager, has a similar reflection. Let's have a look at what he has to say.
My players, because of their experiences in our own country, are hardened to racism. And I don't know what that says about our society, but that's the reality. Throughout this, I know that whatever we do might be perceived as not being enough. But I think we've made a major statement. I think we've made a major statement with the way we played through such a difficult circumstance.
So he's also pointing to the fact that this is a problem in wider society and perhaps is a problem here at home as well. Clearly it's a problem in Bulgaria, but I think it's easy for us sometimes in examples such as this to forget that we have had these problems here in the UK for a while now, even particularly with football. June.
I'd just like to say, I remember doing a very similar topic to this time last year when Danny Rose said that he was thinking about leaving football because of the racism. I do think, of course, we have these problems here, no question, but actually I think the FA has done quite a lot to try and stamp out racism in English football. Not enough, but we also have to be clear that this stuff is heightened in a lot of these Eastern European countries that our players go to play in. And UEFA has done almost nothing. And I think it's got to the point where if I was one of those players, I have to say I'm not going anymore. Why put yourself through it? Perhaps we need something as harsh as that, where England says until UEFA does something serious, there are going to be countries that our players don't go to.
No, you can't punish the fans. That's not fair to the fans. Let's just tell you what UEFA say. UEFA's sanctions are among the toughest in sport for clubs and associations whose supporters are racist at our matches. The minimum sanction is a partial closure of the stadium, a move which costs the hosts at least hundreds of thousands in lost revenue, attaches a stigma to their supporters. They go on. UEFA is committed to doing everything it can to eliminate this disease from football.
Can I just add to that? The point that Danny Rose made in his piece was that yes, the fines may be high for your average person, but for the amount of money that those clubs are making, it's nothing.
No, I agree.
It's not even a day's wage.
I have an apology.
Stop that game.
I have an apology to make.
Okay.
Because in the past, I might have written and indeed said that our football players are amongst the most overpaid, overprotected, overcosseted, who would fall down as if they'd been felled by a sniper if they were merely touched inside the penalty box. I got it totally wrong. They were superb ambassadors on that night. The way Gareth Southgate marshalled them and stewarded them as the manager, typical English or British diplomacy. There was a line over which he wasn't going to go. He would listen to everybody. He showed his passion, but he was calm. He was tolerant, but he let it be known he was super. I'm like Bruno Taglioni, haven't I? But he was absolutely fantastic, and the players were amazing.
So you agree that they let the game continue?
It's up to the players. It's particularly up to the black lads. It's not me, a fat old white Englishman sitting in the home watching this stuff. I'm not being shouted at and having monkey chants. Let the lads who actually do it. If they want to play on, let them play on. If they want to come off, they come off. The truth of the matter is absolutely what June said. UEFA's fines, I had to tell you what they say. What a pile of footballs. Utter nonsense. The fines they levy sometimes £16,000, £17,000 in countries like Montenegro and Serbia. It means nothing. It's not even a week's wages.
But I'm confused, Nick. You said don't sanction the fans, but the fans were the ones who were causing...
No, but English fans.
Well, yes, but
they love following the team, Rachel.
Also,
they can follow them elsewhere.
UEFA also
they can't if they're in a group.
By the way, after your lovely tribute to the Gareth Southgate and his team, we have to acknowledge that UEFA also sanctioned the English team for interrupting the national anthem and not providing enough stewards. Should we just hear what a Labour MP has to say about what she thinks UEFA should be doing to stop this?
UEFA has a duty to act here. The world is watching. A fine is not enough. So I am asking our government to ensure that we are backing up the FA to seek the harshest possible punishment. Stadium bans are a must. Forfeiting matches and expulsion from tournaments must not be ruled out.
Well, that is quite draconian.
I think Michelle wanted to come in.
Yeah, because I'm just conscious that we're describing, you know, what the scenes at that football match were absolutely disgusting. But I think we do also have to get a bit of context because that was probably around 50 people in a stadium of, 20,000 people. They weren't football fans. They were there to cause problem, to deflect attention to themselves and their stupid cause. And actually, we've played right into their hands because we're not sitting here talking about a fantastic victory and achievement by the English team. We're sitting here giving these people what they want, which is attention to their cause.
Yeah, but we need to protect our players.
No, we can't ignore them. But actually, they should have been. It was very clear that they were there to cause trouble. They were sitting there with their eyes visible and everything concealed. They should have been grabbed a hold of and chucked out way before they actually were. And I just think that actually we've just got to be careful about the expectations we're putting onto football clubs. The MP there is talking about expulsions from tournaments and things.
The last thing you do with racism and keep it in the dark because it will flourish.
I'm not suggesting about keeping it in the dark.
I agree.
But when I think about things, people like John Barnes, for example, who speaks out terribly well in terms of racism. He's got really strong, robust views, and he's constantly getting called an Uncle Tom when he's trying to put some perspective in there.
I think they're two different issues. This is about protecting our players.
I want to agree with what you just said there about keeping it in the dark and shining a light on it, because actually I made that mistake. So I grew up thinking, as I said in my introduction, I thought we had defeated this problem, and during the first, this is my mea culpa, during Obama's first year of presidency, I actually entertained the idea we could be moving to a post-racial era, and that was my huge mistake. I was too optimistic. And actually what I realised subsequently, which we all now see, and of course I have a scar on my forehead to testify to it, is that actually it was always there, hidden under the rocks. And all it required was for somebody to knock the rock over, and all those bugs came out again.
And Maajid, just to pick up, Michelle, on your point, it wasn't just a hardcore of fans. At times, it was the whole crowd chanting. And this has happened a few times to our players when they go to certain Eastern European countries, and I think we have to be honest about that. Anyway, back to what you were saying about the players handling themselves so graciously. Let's hear what Tyrone Mings had to say.
Oh, yeah. It was obviously disappointing, but I think the way that we handled it and the appropriate steps that were in place and the protocol that the team and us as players followed, I think was effective. So obviously disappointing to go through what we went through, but very proud of everybody of the way that we handled it and ultimately let the football do the talking.
Tyrone Mings, Aston Villa, first, he was on debut for England. He flew his family out to Sofia. He's not come through football academies. He's come through non-league football. He did a regular job. He's playing for England. He gets called all those names. He's got mum and dad and everybody else. Credit to him and all the other.
What a dignified young man.
Absolutely, June.
But don't you think Bulgarian players should have been the ones that are saying to their fans,
well,
we are going to refuse to play. It's us, the players, the Bulgarian players. We're not accepting this from our fans.
I agree. Should
and
be
I was a bit
unified.
disappointed that they didn't do a bit more than they could have.
And the other thing was, did you hear the England fans? There's a lovely chant that you call the player's name, he's one of our own. And they deliberately, all the black lads, Marcus Rashford, he's one of our own. Right. Tyrone Mings, he's one of our own. And the fans, I mean, it was from the manager through the players to the fans. I tell you, those boys became men on that football stadium. They really did.
Well, but they shouldn't have to become men that way.
No, hang on. No, I'm not saying they should have done.
But there is a positive way of as well as looking at this, and that is it does have that potential to unite us all again around some common causes and common values. Yeah. I think it does require spectacles like this one to make people finally realise, actually, for about a couple of years now, people have been raising the alarm bells, but others may have been slow on the uptake. Yeah.
What
but
is
it's spectacles
like
this that make people...
that brings out this genie of nastiness? Because obviously everyone's...
You don't see that at cricket, do you?
You're talking about the rise of nationalism, but these are people supporting their national side, so of course you're going to see nationalism.
It's always been
in football.
Don't you think that media has an important part to play in this? Because what I found interesting is when I watch some of the media and how they do treat, for example, young black players, it's not particularly well in comparison to their white players. Yes, but then after the game, the following day after the game, I found it quite fascinating to see those same media outlets that had been stoking racism in some ways suddenly going, oh yeah, you know, we're in this together, we won't tolerate racism.
It's a teaching moment.
So the medium
media
has a very, very strong role to play in this and needs to do better.
Half time in oranges now for that one team as we move on.